A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. Glad you're with me on the program today. Exciting news. Kash Patel named the interim ATF director, along with being confirmed as the FBI director. Of course, the confirmation happened last week. I guess the appointment of Kash Patel as the interim ATF director, not quite official, but it is an open secret, being widely reported and celebrated in two-way circles. Of course, Kash Patel, he was one of the speakers at Gun Owners of America's Leadership Summit in Knoxville last August, I believe it was. And, he talked about the bureaucratic abuses on our right to keep and bear arms taking place within the ATF. So to see Patel named as the interim director, that is a reason to celebrate if you are concerned, again, about ATF's abuses and overreach. Now, again, a lot of unanswered questions. We don't know how long Patel will be the interim director, if President Trump will nominate somebody to be the permanent director of the ATF. But this is a good sign. Also comes as Pam Bondi said over the weekend, celebrating the dismissal of the ATF's general counsel and talking about the abuses that gun owners have suffered under Joe Biden's ATF, saying that those abuses are going to stop. So Bondi is still going through her review of all of the ATF's rules, as well as the DOJ's prosecutions and policies on Second Amendment issues. We should have word from Pam Bondi on what she has found and what she wants to do here in the next couple of weeks. But again, reason to celebrate here on a Monday. Also, if you are a South Dakotan, there is reason to be involved and engaged. Actually, no matter where you live, there's reason to be involved and engaged in the legislative process right now. Because I guarantee you, in every state of the union, we've got good bills that are being run. We've got bad bills that are being introduced. Hopefully, the bad bills don't get very far. And in a lot of red states, including South Dakota, I don't think that they will. But that doesn't mean that the good bills are guaranteed to pass, right? I mean, we've seen this. Red states like Florida have struggled to pass simple measures like open carry over the past few years. So a campus carry bill introduced in the South Dakota Senate has actually cleared that chamber. It's over on the House side. It has been modified a little bit. And over the weekend, I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with the chief sponsor and an author of South Dakota's campus carry legislation, Senator Mykala Voita, joined me. We were able to sit down on Saturday and spend a little time talking about the bill, talking about the modifications that it has undergone, and the prospects of passage in the House. It was a fascinating conversation from a freshman lawmaker. So take a look and a listen to our talk about campus carry in South Dakota with Senator Mykala Voita. Senator Mykala Voita, thank you so much for coming on the program. It's good to talk to you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So campus carry making progress in South Dakota this year. Where is your bill right now?
So it passed the Senate, and it is currently sitting, waiting to be calendared in the House State Affairs Committee.
Okay. Is that normal? Are you concerned at all that there are going to be delays in calendaring this? Where do you think the bill stands in the House at the moment?
I think the holdup is just waiting for crossover day. The House is trying to get their bills out by crossover day, and then I think it should be calendared normally.
Okay. So originally, as you wrote this bill, this was about as clean a bill as I've ever seen, Senator, right? This was basically, if you can carry, did this require a concealed carry license? If you have a carry license?
Bill did not.
Okay, so if you can lawfully carry anywhere else in the state of South Dakota, you can lawfully carry on campus. That's basically what it said, right?
Yep.
Why did you want to write that bill as simply and as cleanly as you did?
So I am a constitutionalist. I really, to my core, believe that we shouldn't even have to have these laws. We shouldn't even have to try and step in and tell the Board of Regents that they're out of line with the Constitution. So when I was writing this, there was a lot of different people involved in the original draft that I then took to our staff, and I worked with many different people trying to come up with what is going to be the simplest, cleanest, most constitutional bill that we can run. And that's what we ran through Senate State Affairs. I knew that that committee was going to most likely support it. And even in the pre-drafts that we had, we knew that we were going to have to give the Board of Regents and the Board of Tech Ed some carve-outs for their lab zones.
Mm-hmm.
But we weren't having any luck working with them to get language for what they needed. So that was why the bill that came out of the Senate State Affairs was still just this, one paragraph for each organization, clean.
Okay. That's important to note. So you wanted to work with the Board of Regents, understanding that, okay, there might be some limited places on campus where, these are either secured in other ways or, maybe sensitive places, truly sensitive places. But what happened when you tried to reach out to the Board of Regents? Would you just hear crickets?
Originally, they tried to stuff everything under the sun into what they wanted in the bill. And this was a couple week long back and forth ordeal, right? So yeah, it was just an interesting dynamic, especially me being a freshman legislator. This is not just a one-time thing, right? Students have been asking the Board of Regents. They brought petitions. They've asked for meetings, all kinds of stuff, trying to go directly to the Board of Regents, the school presidents, Board of Tech Ed, and try and just have a friendly, let's work this out. And then it never happened. So that's why we're here.
Okay. So after the bill gets out of the Senate Affairs Committee, it hits the floor, and it now has been amended, right, before it crossed over to the House. Correct?
Yes. So after it came out of the State Affairs Committee, then we were able to actually sit down with the Board of Regents, and they were willing to talk with us about what do you actually have that firearms around would be a bad thing. And that's where we came up with these MRI machines, and some of the language we actually ended up taking from, I think it's Texas concealed or campus carry laws for like the hazardous materials, stuff like that. And then the clean rooms was another thing that they're really adamant that they needed. And most of these areas they have lock boxes there already for, say, cell phones and stuff like that. So then after the State Affairs Committee, we were able to sit down, get something put together that we could both live with, per se. And that is when it hits the Senate floor. I moved the amendment, and it passed with only 2 no votes out of the Senate then.
Wow. That is tremendous support. And, I wrote about the bill when it passed out of the Senate and the amendments that were attached. And I have to say, I mean, it may not be a clean bill, quote unquote, anymore, but these are very limited exceptions. The vast majority of the public spaces and publicly accessible places on a state public university and college campuses is going to be open to those who can lawfully carry a firearm, right? I mean, I would say 99.9% of the campus areas are still going to be covered under your bill.
Yeah, that is the intention.
Okay.
And I would like to point out, too, within the language of this bill, we were very careful to not criminalize, because currently in South Dakota, nothing is criminal about, say, you or I. If we did not have a permit, we're not a student, we're not an employee, there's nothing criminal about us carrying onto campus property. So we were very careful when we drafted this amendment, the bill, all of it, that we are not criminalizing that. There's nothing in statute that if you walk on campus without a permit, it's still not criminal. This bill, as amended, basically what it's saying is we are restricting the Board of Regents and the Board of Technical Education's authority to create policy that restricts these. And they have the authority to restrict a student or an employee that does not have a restricted, enhanced, or any reciprocating permit, but they do not have the authority to restrict those with those permits.
Okay. All right. That is good to know. Because again, I think a lot of the nuance, honestly, Senator, has been lost in some of the media coverage. I'm looking at a headline here. This is from 97.3 KKAC in Sioux Falls. South Dakota looks to pass bill so kids can carry guns on campus. And I thought, okay, well, maybe this is just the headline writer. Nope, very first line of the story. Under the heading of firearms and higher education, some South Dakota senators want kids to be able to carry concealed handguns on college campuses. Now, Senator, let me ask you, at what age can you lawfully carry on campus if your bill becomes law?
18.
Okay. Last time I checked, 18, you're an adult, not a kid.
Last I knew.
So, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Very interesting testimony in the Senate State Affairs Committee about 18 to, I think it was 25-year-olds. And I don't remember which group came up and said that we should not be allowed to carry because science has shown that our frontal lobes are not developed enough to control our impulse reactions from our trigger fingers to our brains.
I mean, I don't even know what to say to something like that. I mean, listen, you can get drafted, right? I got married before I turned 25. I was a dad before I turned 25. So if we're going to start limiting, and it's not even 18 to 21s, which I think is a silly enough argument. But now you add in, okay, well, maybe not until you're 25 could you exercise your Second Amendment rights. It's just so absurd to me. And what other right kicks in, at the age of majority? It's ridiculous. So, I mean, is this the tenor and the tone, the type of nonsense that you've had to combat throughout the progress of this bill in the legislature this year?
Oh, definitely. That was one of the Board of Regents, Board of Tech Ed, that was one of their big things is, well, we don't want to have to deal with, 18 to 20-year-olds and guns in dorms and all this stuff. And they strongly fought for enhanced only permits, and that would have been 21 and older. And I said, no, I'm willing to work with you guys, but my bill, the intent of my bill, is to allow 18-year-olds on up to carry if they so choose. I've been carrying since I was 18. I made that choice that if I can avoid being a victim, I'm going to take my right and my liberty and do so.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, because you mentioned under the enhanced permit, you have to be 21 to get the enhanced permit in South Dakota, but you can carry starting at age 18, right?
Yes, that is the restricted enhanced. So in this bill, the restricted enhanced is what allows the 18 to 20-year-olds to carry.
So if there are already 18 to 20-year-olds who are carrying in South Dakota, they're not posing a problem. Why does the Board of Regents, or at least members of the Board of Regents, think that these young adults are going to go nutty as soon as they set foot on campus? I mean, they seem to be responsible in the grocery store. They're responsible at the gas station. They're responsible at the movie theater. Why, when they set foot on a college campus, would they just lose their mind?
Great question. I haven't found the answer yet.
So you mentioned that you started carrying yourself when you were 18. Is your personal experience one of the reasons why you're so passionate about carrying this piece of legislation?
It is. I'm not a very big person, but my firearm allows me to be able to protect myself if I so need to. And I think everybody should be able to make that decision.
Wow, listen, I'm right there with you on that. Do you mind me asking? I sometimes ask our guests this. I mean, how did you get into this issue? Did you grow up around firearms? Did you grow up in a pro 2A family? Was this something that you came to? I won't say later in life, because you aren't later in life yet. But as you got a little older, what's your background with Second Amendment issues?
We were raised to respect them. We were raised hunting. We were raised going out and shooting with dad. Yeah, I grew up around them.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm glad that you were taking these values to the legislature. Congratulations, by the way, on your victory. You said that this is you're a freshman senator, so congratulations. And it is great to see, again, campus carry making progress. What can South Dakota gun owners do to help get this bill across the finish line?
I think it is super important to email or message or call your representatives that are on the State Affairs Committee, and also the whole body. They need to hear from the people, not just the ones that are afraid, because we all know that the ones that are afraid, with no factual basis, are going to be the ones yelling the loudest right now. So we need to make sure we're all showing our support.
Absolutely. Senator Mykala Voita, thank you again for coming on the program. I'd love to have you back in the future. And one last question, actually, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Since you are a freshman, I'm just curious, how would you describe your experience so far? I mean, has it lived up to your expectations? Did you have any expectations going in? Have you been surprised by anything that you've seen in the Capitol from your position as a lawmaker now?
Coming into it, I had a pretty good idea because I've followed the legislature, my whole adult life. I think one of the biggest things, and this influenced my decision to amend this bill also, one of the biggest things is trying to realize and understand how people make their decisions on a bill. You have to take in so many different factors to do your vote count. And I mean, so many different things influence that, because like we said at the beginning of this, I would love to pass a clean, perfect bill the very first year that we run this, right? But after I started talking to a bunch of people, I started seeing all the pressure that they were getting and how people think. We knew that it was going to die in the House if we kept running the original bill. So it's just been a very eye-opening experience to how legislators think. So yeah.
Yeah. You're getting an up close and personal look at how the sausage gets made. And
oh yeah.
There's a reason they don't give tours of the sausage factory all that often. Senator Voita, again, I can't thank you enough for your time. I look forward to doing this again very soon. And thank you for everything you're doing for the Second Amendment there in South Dakota.
Thank you.
My thanks to Senator Voita for joining us on the program. Looking forward to having her back, maybe when the campus carry bill gets to the governor, maybe after the governor signs campus carry into law. But either way, if you are a South Dakota resident, please make sure that you are in contact with your representative and urge them to support campus carry in as clean a bill as possible. Right now, let's turn our attention to today's armed citizen story, our good deed of the day. And our recidivist report, we'll start there with a case out of St. Paul, Minnesota. Now, this is not a true recidivist report. I don't believe this individual has any previous criminal history, but it is, again, just one of those head-scratching headlines, right? 18-year-old who fatally shot his friend, trying to, quote, scare him, gets probation, house arrest. Wonder if Governor Tim Walz will have anything to say about this. According to KSTP in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Adnan Abdullah Abdi, sentenced to 4 years in prison, which was immediately stayed in lieu of 5 years probation. He will have to serve 90 days of home detention with electronic monitoring. He has 4 days of credit for time served. This comes, again, after he was accused of fatally shooting his friend in the head in what he described as a prank. Now, Abdi was arrested in April of last year after police were called to an apartment by Abdi who originally said that his 19-year-old friend, Omar Nunau, had shot himself. So let's start there. Let's start with the fact that Abdi lied to police. Police began to investigate the shooting as a suicide. But they said that as they started their investigation, they found that Abdi's story didn't make any sense. KSTP says, according to a criminal complaint, Abdi called police around 2 p.m. saying that Nunau had shot himself. He claimed that he had fallen asleep while his friend was playing with a gun and that he woke to the sound of a gunshot and Nunau falling to the floor. When officers pressed Abdi on the circumstances of his friend's death, he then reportedly admitted that Nunau had not shot himself, but that Abdi had shot him, claiming that it was by accident. Abdi said that Nunau had left the room for a moment to go to the bathroom, and he thought he would scare his friend when he came back. So he grabbed a gun, didn't check to see if there was a round in the chamber, didn't check to see if it was loaded, pointed it at Nunau and said, "Freeze," and then pulled the trigger, firing at Nunau's head, killing him. Abdi took a plea deal and pled down to second-degree manslaughter in December, and again was eligible for a prison sentence, was actually sentenced to 4 years behind bars. But that sentence was immediately stayed. Now, listen, this was not an accidental shooting. At the very least, this was negligence. The string of bad decisions, even if we want to take Abdi at his word, that he did not mean to shoot his friend, that this was not an intentional act. Okay. I mean, I'm gobsmacked by the entire thing, because just the thought of, you know what, I'm going to scare my buddy by grabbing a gun and pointing it at him when he comes back from the bathroom. I mean, that alone is just smack you upside the head stupid, right? But taking it one step further, okay, fine. So you've made the idiotic decision to pick up a gun, to point it at your friend when he comes back into the room and say, "Freeze." Why do you pull the trigger? Why do you pull the trigger? I still can't get past that. And again, the negligence, taking Abdi at his word, the negligence that he displayed, to me, is worthy of more than probation and basically being grounded for a month. And I would say that Abdi's acts aren't the only negligent act that we saw in this case, because I think prosecutors were negligent in offering him this deal. I think the judge was negligent in accepting this deal and sentencing Abdi to nothing more than a slap on the wrist. Again, we are told that these are serious offenses, right? We are told that we need all kinds of laws in place to prevent irresponsible people from doing irresponsible things with firearms. And what happens when somebody does something irresponsible with a firearm and somebody dies as a result? In Minnesota, in the case of Abdi, the state doesn't treat that seriously at all. In essence, the state treated it as just a prank gone wrong. So yeah, I think there are plenty of reasons to be bothered by what happened here. Not only the death of a man, but the lack of consequences for those criminally negligent actions. Now, on to today's armed citizen story. From the Detroit suburbs, where police say a donut shop employee fatally shot an intruder during a robbery attempt over the weekend. This was in, I believe it was in Macomb County or Clinton Township. According to a preliminary investigation, a male suspect in his mid-30s entered the Golden Donut shop and pulled out what police said appeared to be a firearm while demanding cash from the register. Police Detective Brandon Blake said in a news release that during an incident, an employee produced a firearm and discharged a shot, which is believed to have struck the suspect. Authorities say the suspect then ran from the shop, got into a vehicle. That vehicle crashed a short distance away at a gas station. Car was soon found by police who were called out to the scene. Clinton Township Police and emergency medical personnel responded to the site of the car accident. The suspect was taken to a local hospital where he was later pronounced dead. No injuries reported among the donut staff. And again, this would appear to be a pretty clear-cut case of self-defense. They say the investigation is still active, and additional details will be provided as they become available. But again, if the employee had a gun pointed at him, if the employee reasonably believed that their life was in jeopardy, then they had the right to use lethal force to protect themselves, any customers that might have been in the shop, and their coworkers. Gary Nerschel works behind the donut shop. He said he was kind of surprised to see this. He said the neighborhood's fairly quiet. It's not one where there's a lot of crime that I know of. And, listen, these things can happen anywhere. Right? Not just in high crime neighborhoods. In fact, that might have been, we don't know, that might have been one of the reasons why the perpetrator decided to rob this place. Low crime area. What are the odds that somebody in this donut shop is going to have a gun and be able to fight back? Right? Well, in this case, he rolled the dice and came up on the losing end of that bet. On to today's good deed of the day. In the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. A Ohio teenager who has saved 2 people in 2 weeks, including his grandfather, as well as his neighbor, 18-year-old Gavin Saltzman. 2 weeks ago, he and his mom were taking his grandfather Roger to the hospital in Oregon. Grandpa had what felt like and what seemed like a cold. But according to the Saltzman family, things took a turn for the worse as they were driving through this neighborhood. Roger then went into cardiac arrest and stopped breathing. Gavin Saltzman said, we had to pull over at Arby's. And all of a sudden, he just stopped breathing. So Gavin knows CPR. Said that he had learned this in school. In a med tech class. He said, I was literally thinking about skills like medical skills just in case something does happen, which it did. So he performed CPR on his grandfather for about 5 minutes, and Roger's heart started beating again. They then were able to rush Granddad to the hospital. Doctors discovered that not only had he had a cardiac event, but he also had a stroke. Gavin's mom, Chanel Childress, says, I am so blessed. My baby, my miracle baby, saved my dad, who's my best friend. She said there are no words to describe it, just unbelievable. And then again, 2 weeks later, Gavin saves his neighbor. He heard cries for help one night. As it turned out, his neighbor had fallen and broken her leg and was stuck outside. Again, this is February. It's cold. It's below freezing. Gavin said, it felt good because I saved my grandpa and I saved her. If she had been out all night, it was like 15 degrees that night. She could have died or froze to death. I'm just glad I got to help her. Again, Gavin's mom, Chanel Childress, says, there are no words that can describe how blessed I am to be Gavin's mom. To see my miracle baby be my dad's miracle, outstanding. She said, I've never felt it in my heart before, what I witnessed. And again, in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing to save a family member and a neighbor in need. Well, Gavin Saltzman, huge tip of the cap to you, sir. And thank you for your very, very good deed. All right. Deeds, I guess, plural, right? All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. I want to thank you for being a part of the program as always. I'm looking forward to seeing you back here again tomorrow. We're going to be talking with Second Amendment attorney Amy Bellantoni from New York State. We will, of course, be covering the latest Second Amendment news and information from all around the nation as well. And, of course, you can get the latest headlines and deep dives into the latest news at BearingArms.com. If you like what you see, I would encourage you to become a VIP Gold or VIP Gold, or VIP Platinum. Remember, you've got 3 tiers to choose from, all of which have various exclusive benefits, and all of which will help you support the independent pro-Second Amendment journalism that we're doing at Bearing Arms. And again, we thank you so much for that support. Have a great rest of your Monday, as good as Mondays can be. And we'll see you back here tomorrow for 2A Tuesday. Until then, be well, be safe, and be free.